Thank you for joining us today. We obviously, the folks on our side, on the Secretary of State side, we're very familiar with Dominion voting systems. We went through a very rigorous process of selecting your firm. We went through an implementation, which was the fastest and the largest statewide implementation we've ever had before. The last time that something of this size has been done was in 2002 with Secretary of State Kathy Cox. But we had to have ours ready for the presidential primary. And then 2 weeks into that, COVID hit and required us to make a lot of adaptations in a pandemic environment. But many of the people in Georgia wouldn't have the detailed knowledge that we do. And we thought it would be best if we could, you come in and share that with folks. And then also our state election board members, I'm sure, have questions that they would like to ask you. So thank you for agreeing to participate today. And the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. What I thought I'd do is I'd start with a little bit of background on Dominion voting. I've certainly been asked a lot of questions over the last 4 months, and I have a good idea of what your committee might be interested in hearing, and then enough time for any questions that I could answer for the committee. So first off, Dominion voting system started in 2003, roughly 18 years ago, really with just a very simple mandate of helping blind people vote on paper, privately and independently and with dignity. That mission quickly expanded to include helping election officials count paper ballots accurately and transparently. And since then, our mission has largely remained unchanged. That's what we do. Our success really ties back to our commitment to paper ballots, and our first very large implementation was in the year 2008 across the state of New York, where we partnered with 52 election officials across that state in implementing a certified paper-based voting system in time for the 2008 presidential election. Since then, we have expanded across the United States and currently serve in jurisdictions representing 28 states with several separate jurisdictions within those 28 states. Our contract, as you very well know, with the state of Georgia was awarded in the summer of 2019. Pretty much immediately, we began implementing a very large scale rollout of paper-based systems in time for the first pilot elections of that fall. I believe it was November and December timeframe of 2019, and working actively with the 159 counties whose accountability, of course, it is to run the elections in time for the March primary. As we now know, the March primary was delayed due to the effects of COVID into the summer, into June, and worked together with the 159 counties in deploying the full system for the November 2020 general election. I find it important these days to specifically talk about what we do as a company and what we don't do as a company. So first off, we provide technology that helps election officials run and accurately count paper ballots. We don't run elections. We don't have the authority. We don't have the accountability. It's in the state of Georgia, it is the 159 counties that have that accountability and authority to run elections. Our job is limited to our founding mission, which is helping voters create paper ballots privately and independently, and helping election officials through our technology, allowing them to accurately count those paper ballots. As we now know, the roughly 5 million ballots from the November 2020 election were counted 3 times in the state of Georgia, each time reaffirming the results, as well as a robust audit from the runoff in January for the Senate races. In terms of some of the disinformation that has been spread regarding our company and the election in general, and certainly it has affected the state of Georgia, as we all know, our systems are certified, meaning a number of things. We submit complete systems, including source code, to federal accredited test labs who spend an inordinate amount of time and proper diligence going through each line of code and testing for a range of parameters that is very carefully detailed in the VVSG standards at the EAC level. In addition to that, many states require additional certification at the state level, where this process is not only repeated independently, but in many cases greatly expanded upon to include penetration testing. Above and beyond that, we as a company also submit our systems to penetration testing to independent test labs. And in conjunction with our customers, we also submit our source code to independent testers when it makes sense for our customers. The first such time that we did that was in the state of New York, along with the New York State Board of Elections in the year 2008. So I think I'll leave it at that, and can certainly answer any questions regarding our company and the election process in general, what we do and what we don't do. With that, I'll open the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Poulos. Board members, I guess, do you have any questions for Mr. Poulos? If so, Ms. Sullivan, as Vice Chair, you can go first if you'd like that honor.
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Worley?
Yes, Mr. Secretary, I do have a question or two for Mr. Poulos. And Mr. Poulos, thank you for appearing today. And thank you for what I think can only be described as a very competent rollout of Georgia's new election system in 2019 and 2020. I think the results speak for themselves in terms of how well the system worked statewide. You mentioned that there's a lot of disinformation out about Dominion, and that disinformation has affected the state of Georgia. I know that Dominion has recently filed defamation lawsuits against Rudy Giuliani, against Sidney Powell, against Mike Lindell for statements that they have made about Dominion. Unfortunately, the disinformation campaign is pretty widespread, and it has had an impact here in the state of Georgia in that members of the General Assembly are taking that disinformation and using it as a reason to engage in what really can only be described as a systematic effort to suppress voters now that the results of the last election were known and they didn't like the results of the election. Under these circumstances, has anyone from any of the legislative committees of the Georgia General Assembly that are considering election changes contacted you or anyone from Dominion and asked them to appear and testify about this disinformation?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Worley. I am aware that we have had various conversations with members of the Assembly, not just in the state of Georgia, but in other states as well. And unfortunately, I don't have the specifics. I have not personally had the conversations with anyone. Our view in terms of participating in these hearings is as follows. First off, it's important for everybody to understand what our accountability is, what we do and what we don't do, which I referenced at the beginning. The fact that we do not run elections is very clear. Your counties run elections, and it is the election officials who have the authority to make decisions and to actually execute and run the business of elections. They're the ones accountable and best suited to be able to answer questions specifically regarding their process, how it, in any manner of the election. There is To say that there is an abundance of evidence supporting the fact that there was an accurate tally of ballots is an understatement. The fact that the state of Georgia has counted 5 million ballots 3 times, one of those 3 times was done by hand, distributed across 159 counties with thousands of people involved in that process, is frankly, you don't need to go much further than that to understand that the ballots were counted properly. Some of the actors the actors that are promoting the disinformation have certainly made allegations that the hand count did not in fact happen. But I know that this this committee obviously know that is not true. So there are references to there are so many different examples of research that has been done to against the allegations that have been made by unreliable sources that refuse to provide any evidence. We find that these people are quick to say that they have evidence, quick to say that they have 100% proof, but yet they don't provide any of their evidence. If you look at the most recent release from the MITRE report that was released the other day, that took a deep look into the statistical release of the results across various states, including Georgia, you can see that this group that actually does do research for national level governments has released all of their findings, including their assumptions and all of their underlying data to the public to look at. In the case of Maricopa County in Arizona, they actually hired 2 EAC accredited independent test labs to run audits. But of course, as this committee knows, this was also done in the state of Georgia as well.
Well, I appreciate your answer, Mr. Poulos, and I certainly agree with you that there's an abundance of evidence that elections here in Georgia were conducted properly. I seem to take from your answer that you have not been officially contacted by any of the committees that are considering legislation on Georgia voting this year. And I think that's a shame because I think you do have important information that should be presented to those committees as they consider this legislation. I think unfortunately, they probably don't want to hear from you. But I would encourage you to take every opportunity to make your views known to those committees. Thank you.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Ms. Onley or Mr. Mashburn, do either one of you have any questions for Mr. Poulos?
This is on. I want to thank Mr. Poulos for being here today and joining us for this meeting. I don't have any major questions. I guess the only question I would like to ask is, from this past experience with Georgia elections, this being our first election on the Dominion machines, did you observe any, I guess, notes or lessons learned, if you will, for improvements with future iterations of this machine? Or did you see anything that you could suggest or observe that could be implemented in future elections?
Well, in terms of the actual system itself, we've frankly been having a very active dialogue with the Secretary of State's office as well as various counties, and really bifurcate that into 2 different ways. One is on the election process itself, which is the accountability of the election officials in each of the 159 counties, and how they might take the data that they obtained through the 2020 election cycle and how they might be able to more effectively deploy the technology to reduce everything from lineups to voter flow. And in regards to the actual ballot tabulation system itself, we have been having an active dialogue with the Secretary of State's office, letting them know the various initiatives that are being undertaken around the country on how better to on how to increase transparency and educate constituents on how the election actually works, and the fact that how paper ballots are actually created and how they are counted, and allowing that awareness campaign to effectively disseminate across the entire state in hopes to avoid some of the disinformation that has been propagated.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that answer. And again, thank you for being here today.
Mr. Mashburn, do you have any questions for Mr. Poulos?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for appearing today, and thank you for the opportunity to ask questions, Mr. Secretary. The questions that I have are questions that I've heard from people over and over, so I'm just going to go straight into them. Is Dominion an American company or not?
We are, sir. I started the company in Canada as a Canadian company. And in 2018, we sold the company. So there's a lot of information that is incorrect online in various places about us not being an American company. So let me be very, very clear. Our owners are a private equity company with US investors based in New York. And that is the parent company. We don't have an American subsidiary. It's the company is American and American owned. We have roughly 300 employees, most of whom are distributed across the United States. Our head office is in Denver, Colorado. We have smaller regional offices in the states of New York and California, now in Georgia as well, in Texas and in Florida. And really our employees are distributed close to where our customers are. And I feel obliged to also clarify, we are not Venezuelan. We have never run elections in Venezuela. And we understand that there are 2 US companies that have run elections in Venezuela in the past. I can tell you with certainty that Dominion is not one of them. And with specific regards to allegations made that we, along with every other voting system vendor in the United States, uses software created by Smartmatic. That is not true. Smartmatic is a separate company. We are competitors. They do their own thing. We compete vigorously with them. It's my understanding that they service Los Angeles County in the United States. But we are no way using their source code or are tied to their ownership or their board structure or any of that.
I thank you for that detailed explanation. That raises the next question. Is I think you said you were in business since 2003. Has anybody anywhere in any case, in any court, or any contest or any recount ever shown that a Dominion machine, even a single one, has ever flipped a vote from one candidate to another in a live election?
No, sir. And I'll expand on that one if you'll allow me. Let me be very clear on the source of the disinformation. On November 19th, Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani took to a national stage at the RNC offices in Washington in front of the National Press Corps and alleged a number of different things. They alleged an old conspiracy theory that really, from what we see, started in other elections in other states with companies that had nothing to do with Dominion. Though that old conspiracy theory had several components to it. One was that we were founded in Venezuela, which is 100% false. It also alleged that we were tied to a Venezuelan group, which is 100% false. And then that theory expands to include a version of an election system which could not be more false. The theory contends that your counties have very little to do with your election, that somehow their official databases and their secure stores of paper ballots are not somehow the official record of the election and the official ballot count. but somehow some national level database, which sits in Frankfurt, Germany on Amazon Web Services servers controlled by a company called Seidel, with source code from Smartmatic. This is 100% false, and this is exactly the core of the disinformation and the root of it. And so specifically, there are a lot of different companies that provide vote tabulation services, and Dominion is one of those companies in the United States. Our key competitors, as well as us, all undergo a very strict and rigorous federal certification process and state certification process. To the claim that we all use the same source code is ridiculous. It's 100% false, and any of the authorities at the federal or state levels, or any of the labs that all have our source code through our voluntary penetration testing could attest to that. Moreover, our critics and the actors in this disinformation campaign, while they take to national media and they so confidently assert that they have, quote, evidence, no one talks about the fact that there are paper ballots. And when asked about it, they really brush it to the side. They don't reference the fact that there are 5 million ballots in the state of Georgia, paper ballots, that are in the secure possession of 159 counties with all of their staff. There are no private companies that have access to it, nor should they. And so the idea, going back to this theory that somehow results get fed up from the county level to the state level and then to some national level server that is housed in Frankfurt, where bad actors from different countries can somehow change the vote, is ludicrous and does not explain the fact that you have one paper ballot for every eligible voter, for every valid voter that has voted in your election. And that is what you hand counted. You did a hand recount, 100% recount, or sorry, 100% hand audit, plus an additional 100% machine recount. So sorry for the long answer, but I felt compelled to clarify that.
Now, I just had one last question, and I've heard people come up to me and said that it's possible to remotely hack into the machines and make updates, or the Dominion actually itself goes into the machines remotely and makes updates. Is that possible or not possible?
No, that is not possible, but you shouldn't take my word for it. You should ask your election officials who actually have possession of those machines. Those machines haven't been in our possession since we delivered them to the state and to the county when possession changed hands as part of that implementation process. There has been some reports in the media that are 100% false. Unfortunately, one of them still is on the web. And the story refers to a remote update on the election system, which has been proven to not to have happened. It's impossible. And it's basically the same as, I won't even make an analogy because it's so ridiculous. The machines are in the possession of the county, not of any private company. And they're designed to be air gapped. And in the state of Georgia, the tabulators in the polling locations do not have modems. And the systems and the back-end systems are air gapped with the results. The official results database are air gapped from the system that each county uses to upload the results to the public. But again, that is a process that is best described and verified by the people who have accountability to run the elections and who have the physical custody of all of this system, which is your poll officials, your election officials.
Thank you for that. I said I only had one more, but I've got one more on the one more. And that is just a real quick, could even be yes or no, but y'all just, your company only deals with counting the votes. It has absolutely nothing to do with registration or poll pads or anything like that. It's just straight counting, right?
That's correct. Our systems do two things. We help people with disabilities vote privately and independently on a paper ballot, and we help election officials count those paper ballots. What we don't do, we do not do any voter registration systems. We do not do any electronic poll books. We do not get involved in vote by mail services. We do not print ballots. We do not mail ballots. We do not determine who is eligible to receive a ballot. All of that is done separately and coordinated through your election officials.
And you can expand on this if you want to, but I just wanted to kind of emphasize for the record that when we in Georgia recounted the paper ballots by hand, that was humans reading human readable text and not humans trying to read QR codes, but that was humans looking at human readable text. And just, if you have anything to add to that, please feel free.
Yeah, I sure do. So as the ballot marking device is meant to help voters create a paper ballot. The ballot marking device does not tabulate or count any paper ballots. That is done by a separate machine whose sole function is to scan and tabulate paper ballots. Our system is capable of running, of printing those paper ballots in a variety of formats, and one of them, which has been used in the state of Georgia, it has a one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it has human readable text. There is also a QR code. The advantage of the QR code is that it allows for a single 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper to have all of the selections that a voter makes. There are critics of this type of a system, and whether the critics have pointed to the fact that the 2D barcode is not readily human readable, which is again, from the standpoint of my company, we're very agnostic when it comes to this. Our system is capable of doing, frankly, anything that your law allows for. And the critics argue that what is looked at on the screen of the ballot marking device may or may not be the same as what is printed on that ballot. Now, the flip side to that argument is that a voter has an opportunity when they are holding their printed piece of paper. That is their ballot. They have not cast that ballot yet, but they're looking at that ballot and they can review their choices, which makes for a, quote, voter verified paper ballot. If you contend that voters will not look at that text, then obviously that's a discussion that is up for the people that have accountability that decide how elections should be run in any given jurisdiction. Our system has the ability to do anything, frankly, that you need it to do. So what was unique about the 100% hand audit is that what that definitively showed was that the text that the voters verified was the same as the QR code. Now, whether or not that is something that can be done on an economic basis for every future election, whether that's something that is done randomly through audits of risk limiting audits, that is now quickly becoming the norm across the country. And it is a very good thing in everyone's opinion as it increases transparency and confidence. That went to definitively show that the text on every ballot of the 5 million ballots was in fact accurate and the same as what the machines reported.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your appearance today, and thank you to the Secretary for letting me take a lot of time asking questions, but these are all questions that I've been asked. So since we have access to you today, I figured I would go ahead and do all the ones that I've heard.
Well, thank you, sir.
Well, if there are no more questions from any of our board members, Mr. Poulos, thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man, and we are today. Also, we have about 75 cases to plunge through. So with that, I'll I'll let you go, and we'll get on to some other business of this board. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day.